Okay. Go. Hi, I'm Olivia.
Hi, I'm Maddie.
And we're doing our project as we told you. So here we go. Out of all the places in which you have traveled, which one is your favorite?
Ooh, that's a tough question. When you travel a lot, like I do sometimes the best place is to be back home, actually. But from pure standpoint of just seeing cool places, I think two for me stand out. One is Nepal and the other one is Argentina. And yeah, those are great places for the mountains and the people and everything else. So those are my two favorite.
Okay.
What did it feel like to be on top of Everest for the first time, and how do you think Hillary and Norgate felt?
Ooh, yeah. Tell you, it was a great feeling the first time. It's always a great feeling. I've been there a few times, but yeah, it's amazing. You know, as much as if you've climbed a lot, you enjoy that reaching a top feeling, but Everest definitely has a special feeling because it's the highest one. So it has a special magic to it that I think everyone feels when they go up there. And it's pretty beautiful view if you have good weather, and you can see super far in all directions into Tibet and into the middle of Nepal, and it's a really amazing vision.
All right. How do the people you guide feel when they are about to summit Everest for the first time?
Yeah, I think they're number one. I think they're really tired, but then they're also really excited and just wanting to get those last steps finished, because on the summit of Everest, there's a stretch there. The last about 20 minutes of walking up to the very top is really slow and tiring, and so people, I think they just want to just get there at that point, and then they have a celebration and start back down.
What inspired you to start guiding people up the mountains?
You know, I've been climbing for about 15 years, and I knew I wanted to do something with the outdoors for a job. I was a geologist for a while, and then was doing so much climbing of my own that I decided to kind of switch careers and go into the guiding and outdoor education careers. And so I started being an instructor in mountaineering, and I did a lot of work down in South America in the Andes Mountains. And from there, I just started talking with friends of mine, and one friend in particular, we decided to start our own guide service. And then yeah, it just kind of went from there, and it's been 10 years of owning a company, and it's been a great experience all the way. And it's really nice to work with lots of different people and see them realize their dreams by climbing these mountains.
Cool. What was your first successful summit that you had?
You know, the first one of like a kind of quote unquote big mountain was Mount Shasta out in California. That's a 14,000 foot peak, and I'd been rock climbing a lot before that, but I decided I want to learn how to climb these high altitude mountains. So I went out when I was in my mid-20s and took a course to learn how to use the ropes and crampons and ice axe and stuff like that to climb up these snowy mountains that have ice and glaciers on them. And that was a great trip.
What was your motivation to go into mountain climbing? Did I already say that?
Yeah, you okay. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Were you more excited? Were you more excited or nervous the first time you summited Everest?
I was more excited. Yeah, it was a good feeling. I remember being, kind of getting to the top, and a lot of these people that climb mountains, whether they're men or women, they're all tough and stuff like that, right? But I remember being up there and having a personal little moment and having a really, deep feeling that it was one of the only summits that I felt really like empowered and a special feeling that like I did something, which is, sounds kind of conceited or something, but it was just inside my head. It wasn't outwardly. So I had a little, little tear inside my goggle, and it was just kind of a good feeling because whether you love Everest or you think it's too many people going there now, it's still a very special and historical mountain, and so it's kind of a neat feeling to get to that top.
When you were little, did you ever think that you would go into mountaineering as like a career?
I didn't know, but I always knew I wanted to be in the outdoors somehow, and so it took me until I was about 26 actually to where I actually became working as a climber. So I didn't know it when I was younger, but I knew that the adventures were in my blood.
Did you ever have a specific person that you enjoy climbing with the most?
I think not one specific, but it's changed over years because as partners come and go from whatever reason, like maybe their family situation changes, and I've had a lot of my friends, I'm at an age where a lot of my good friends and buddies have recently started families, for example, and so maybe they don't climb so much or go traveling to big peaks as much. So throughout, and I've also had relationship. My past girlfriend was an adventurer and a climber and everything, and so we would do trips together. And so all these things sometimes change. Like maybe you really enjoy it with one person for a few years, and then maybe they move on, and then you start climbing with other circles of people and stuff. So I think it constantly evolves. But there are good friends of mine that I still have climbed with over and over for 10 years, and so they're always fun to be with.
Okay. What about failures? Have you had any, and what did you do with that experience?
Yes, I have, and they're very important, at least I think in mountain climbing, but also, mountain climbing is very similar to life experiences because you're always trying to strive for some goal or whatever. But I have had several times on mountains where we didn't reach the summit, or we turned around because maybe it was too dangerous of conditions, like too bad weather or bad maybe avalanche hazards and all those things. And so making the decision to turn around and come back another day can be really hard, especially when you've put in a lot of work to get to that high place. And you have that feeling of, I just want to get to the top. But sometimes turning around is a really good lesson, and it creates good judgment. And so it allows you in the future to say like, oh, okay, so this is what's happening. The weather is not so good. Maybe I'm too tired and stuff like that. And you start to think through if it's really such a good idea to keep going up for the safety of everyone.
Well, yeah.
Okay. Do you have a special item that reminds you of home and when you're on expeditions?
Let me think if I have. I don't really necessarily have one that makes me think of home. No. I try to take the least amount of stuff. So, but no, I'm not a really superstitious kind of person, or maybe that's not even superstition you're asking about. That's just like some special thing to think of back home. But I think I look at pictures when I'm on expeditions, like look at my friends and my girlfriend and people like that. And so that's what reminds me of home when I'm away.
What would you say to a young person who is climbing for the first time and asked you, how am I going to survive this?
I would say take the time to take some classes for climbing and learn the safe ways of tying in your rope, and learn the techniques that are really valuable for climbing safely. And then take your time and choose good friends and good partners that know what they're doing. And so take it slow, but also be motivated and excited about challenges, because it's kind of a balance of those two things. Some people may be too like gung-ho, like I'm going to go try this really hard mountain, maybe a little before they really should with their skills and their experience. And others will go really slowly, and that's okay too, like not pushing themselves on more challenging things. So for someone that's young and getting into it, it's great to just try to find that balance of challenging yourself on climbs, but also being really safe and conservative when it comes to that.
What advice do you give the people before they summit Everest?
To have enough energy to come back down. That's really important. A lot of, it's easy to think of I just have to get to the top. And the dangerous part can be when people have just enough energy to get to the peak, but you have to remember you still have all the way back down to the high camp after, and that's pretty tiring too. So yeah, I remind people of that.
What goals have you set for yourself that you achieved?
Well, two come to mind. Number one is working for myself and owning my own company, my own guide service. And that's a constant ongoing effort. It's like maybe that's not a goal that I achieved, but it's something I'm proud of. And the other thing is I was able to do a cool project, which is called the Adventurers Grand Slam. And so I was able to climb the highest mountain on every continent and also ski full expeditions to the North and South Poles. So that project took me basically like 12 years to kind of piece together over, just working a trip and guiding a mountain and getting that summit, and then eventually being able to be in the position to raise funds and sponsorship and stuff for these expensive Antarctica and Arctic Ocean expeditions. So that was pretty cool.
What was it like being on Everest during the avalanche last year?
It was scary and mostly sad after the accident happened. I was guiding a group, and we had just returned to base camp from being up on the mountain the day before, and we were eating lunch in our dining tent in base camp when we felt the earthquake start, and it was pretty scary. And once it stopped, we didn't think too much of like, wow, danger, although I know avalanches are a danger of that. And so we walked outside our dining tent, and then we heard this big avalanche coming down off a mountain next to the base camp, and it kind of went right through part of base camp, and then we kind of were aware a little after that many people had been injured, and so from there it was a lot of helping other people, trying to be kind of first aid and helping injured people and getting them down a little bit so that they could try to get out via a helicopter in a couple days. So it was sad, and yeah, that's basically I think that's the word for me that sums it up, because it's a tragedy, but it's also it was quite literally being at the wrong place at the wrong time, because if that earthquake happened 2-3 weeks later, there would not have been any people camping there, and that avalanche would have just kind of done its natural thing. But because it happened when it did, and there was Everest people climbing, and that place is usually very safe where we were, it's just that it was such a big earthquake that happened very close that it created avalanches. that were out of the norm for that area, and so it was the wrong place at the wrong time.
Okay. So me and my dad have started to watch an old Everest show called Everest Beyond the Limit. And it was from 2006 to 2009. And then I was reading on your website that you summited around that time. So the team leader was Russell Bryce. Did you know do you know him or any of his people on his expeditions?
Yeah, I know Russell. He's I've worked with him quite a bit over the years, and yeah, he's a good guy, really good expedition leader, and funny character for sure.
What were you doing in Antarctica?
Just now?
Yeah.
My company was leading a group of Canadian veteran soldiers and some civilians that helped those veterans after they served to climb the highest mountain in Antarctica called Mount Vinson. And that was a really cool project to work on, and we guided a total of 26 climbers down there to the highest mountain, which is on the coldest, driest continent in the world. So it's a big adventure and hard to get there, and kind of expensive logistics to put together and all this, but it was a really powerful experience, and we had a lot of people, all the people reached the summit. And so not that was making it a success or not, but it was really great because these soldiers get to be involved with business leaders on the expedition and open doors for the future for them, for potential work and just life experiences.
Very cool.
Yeah. What was it like standing on the North Pole and the South Pole? Is it exhilarating, or do you realize that it's only half the battle?
Well, it's very cool. It's a neat feeling to think of that you're on one of the ends of the world, like quite literally. And like when I was at the South Pole, I remember doing a handstand and thinking I have the whole world on top of my hands, depending on the access. So, and the North Pole definitely is exhilarating in that the way me and my partner did it was kind of the hardest way you can do it, which is skiing from Canada all the way to the North Pole and with no help. So we carried everything the whole time, and it took us 53 days to reach the North Pole. And so when we finally reached it, it was so hard to do that we were just so happy we were finally didn't have to move anymore. We could just put up our tent and camp. So good feeling.
So this is the last question. When you were going to the North Pole, how much swimming did you do compared to walking or skiing? Is that a major threat to global warming?
You know, we did a lot more swimming than people in the past had to do. And in relation to skiing and walking, it's not much, because most of the time you're skiing and stuff like that. But when they're called leads, so when the ice cracks open and splits apart, that exposes the ocean below, and so there's many more leads than there used to be in the past. And we were very surprised to see lots and close to the North Pole when we got there that time of year. And so we think, at least the overall consensus within the scientific community is that there is change in our climate, and everyone agrees on that. And we can see the effects in the Arctic Ocean because the ice is getting thinner every year, and there's not as much old ice, which means like many years of ice compiling on top of each other. It's more thin, young ice. So the fact that we had to swim a lot is also kind of like a piece to just show, like, wow, there's a lot more open water now than there used to be. So something's happening. And yeah, it was interesting to say the least, for sure.
Okay. Thank you so much for doing an interview.
You're welcome.
with us. We'll be sure to put it in our project.